Welcome to the Equine Vet Connect podcast. I'm your host, Dan Carter. I'm a veterinarian and a farrier. The goal of this podcast is to educate horse people, break things down, bust myths, and keep it real. Speaking of breaking things down, here's my legal disclaimer to keep my attorney and insurance company happy. While I am a vet, I may not be your vet. Contact them before trying anything you hear on this podcast. Remember, just because you watched it on YouTube or heard it on a podcast does not mean you can do it. Please use common sense. Welcome back to the Equine Vet Connect podcast here at Countryside Equine Hospital. We got a little bit of a different episode this morning. All right. So y'all have heard me talk about April. If you actually make it all the way to the end of our podcast, you always hear us thinking April. She does the recording. So April doesn't just record our podcast, just do our marketing stuff. But April, you're also a horse owner, correct?
Yes, yeah. Have been since I was 8 years old.
8 years old. All right. So this is a lifetime obsession like the rest of us.
Yeah. I don't know how it got in my blood, but it is, and it's not going anywhere.
I don't think it's a blood thing. I think it's a chromosome thing. I think we're hardwired.
It might be, yeah, down to the chromosome. I think so.
Because, I always say there's never a little bit into horses.
Oh, no, all or nothing.
Yeah, you're all or nothing. So, But thanks for being here this morning. I know you're always here when we're doing this, but you're on the side of the table, the other side of the table today. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a different episode this morning. All right. So this is something, maybe y'all can help us come up with a name for our listeners. Want to send in some names. If we pick your name, we'll send you some swag. But we want to try, what we really want to do is we want to give people that have horse owners a chance to come in, sit down with us at the podcast, and think about it. If you were trapped in an elevator with a vet for 45 minutes and you could ask them any questions you wanted, ask anything, like you're stuck, captive audience, and you can just dive into a topic and ask every question you ever wanted to ask a veterinarian about a topic. And that's what we're going to do today. So
perfect.
So today, April is not. She's coming to us as an owner, as a trainer. You trained horses for a while as well. Still do a few lessons if I remember right.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, all right, April. So I'm gonna turn it over to you. This is your time to ask questions. Your time to do a deep dive. Your time to learn anything you want to know. So let's jump into this.
Okay. So growing up in more of a Western industry, I was always around the quarter horses, and you always hear about HYPP or tying up, but you never really know what that is. It's just kind of this like monster that's lurking under the bed, and then somebody's horse ties up, but then what? So I guess let's start with, what is tying up? Okay.
So tying up, that's kind of the common name for a condition called rhabdomyolysis. All right, so rhabdomyolysis has a ton of different names over the years. Rhabdomyolysis used to be called Monday morning disease. It used to be called blackwater disease because the urine actually gets dark. Later on, it's called tying up. All right, symptomatically, these horses get really stiff, really crampy. Some of them can get to the point where they can barely walk, and they have a lot of difficulty walking and even moving. If you touch them, their muscles are really, really hard, because what's actually happened is they have a giant cramp, but it's their whole body. Their whole body has just seized up, gotten extremely tight, and they've cramped. And that's what it looks like. And like I said, our big word for it's rhabdomyolysis, and there's a ton of different causes. So this is really tying up, or rhabdomyolysis is more of a symptom. Okay, not an actual disease itself. It's a problem, and it's a big problem. But there's a whole lot of different causes to this.
Okay, so you don't pinpoint, my horse is tying up, that must mean it has PSSM.
Correct. If a horse is tying up, it means we need to go find out why they're tying up. Mild HYPP episodes can look like tying up. PSSM can look like they're tying up. Actually, vitamin E deficiencies can look like they're tying up. You also have what's just called recurrent exertional rhabdomyolysis, which means they're tying up, but it's not one of these other causes. We think that one has to do with calcium channels and how the calcium moves in and out of the muscles. So a lot of different causes. The most important thing is figuring out which one you actually have.
But it's typically after work, right?
The majority of time it's after work. So that's why it's called, like going back on the history, that's why it's called Monday morning disease. Horses would work all week, they'd have Sunday off, and they tie up on Monday. And so that one we now know is PSSM, or they were describing PSSM in those older texts.
Why did it take 24, 48 hours to hit? What makes that unique?
So that has to do with a particular cause. Most of those horses have PSSM. And we'll dive into PSSM in a little bit, but it stands for polysaccharide storage myopathy, and it has to do with the way they store sugar in their bodies. And so when they're working and they're burning, they're using calories, they're actually burning all that sugar off. When they rest on Sunday and they're eating, they start storing all that sugar up. These horses have in a form called glycogen inside the muscle. What you run into is some of them can't get that glycogen back out of their muscle. When we're talking about PSSM, and this is the first thing a lot that you kind of need to understand if we're going to talk about PSSM, it takes energy from muscles to relax. So without energy, and energy comes from a compound called ATP. ATP comes from glucose. So if you run out of glucose, your body can't relax. All right. So the easiest way to understand this, and this is not PSSM, but we've all heard of rigor mortis, right? When something dies, it gets really, really stiff about 20, 30 minutes in. That's because the body has run out of glucose, and those muscles all contract and get really, really tight. That's the same thing that's happening with PSSM. They run out of glucose, they cramp up, and they get really, really tight.
They run out of glucose because those muscles are holding on to that glycogen.
Right. With PSSM,
so there's no energy to release it.
Yeah, they can't get the glycogen out.
Okay.
So the body takes in glucose. It's going to store it as glycogen. So it's just a new way of packaging up glucose molecules. So the blood has glucose floating around in it. Okay. So that's called your blood glucose. If you've ever had your sugar checked at the doctor and they prick your finger, they look at how much blood glucose you have. That usually there's enough glucose in the bloodstream to last you about 15 minutes. And then the body's got to go get more. So the first place it goes to get more is glycogen stores. So you got these glycogen that's inside the muscle. So the body, the glucose starts dropping in the blood. We send a signal from the pancreas and it says, hey, go get me some glycogen. Go mobilize that glycogen. I need some more glucose. So the body starts going in and it starts dumping, it starts, harvesting all that glycogen as glucose and puts it into circulation. Now you've got about another 15 minutes of glycogen in the body. So I always say this is why when you talk to your doctor or if you're talking to your vet and you're like, my horse needs to lose weight, and we're like, hey, we need 20 to 30 minutes of exercise daily. Well, the reason is that gets us out of blood glucose, out of glycogen, and then we mobilize fat. So if you want to lose fat, that's why you have to exercise 30 to 45 minutes or an hour a day, because you've got to run out of blood glucose, run out of glycogen, and then start going to get fat to power the body. So if we can't get that glycogen out, the fat metabolism hasn't started yet, and we run out of energy. We run out of glucose. We can't relax anymore. And that's the way PSSM works in order for a horse to tie up.
So say your horse has been tying up for however long, you didn't realize that was what was going on. Would you also begin to notice like they're losing body fat as well? Eventually?
Sometimes. It all depends on the cause. And so that's the thing is when a horse is tying up, there's a lot of different causes. All right. And some of them are related to fat stores. But a lot of times these horses actually have plenty of condition. They look healthy. They just, after 20, 30 minutes worth of work, or they have and that's in like a mild to moderate level of work. If they're in really, really heavy work, they're going to run out of that blood glucose faster. And a lot of them look in good condition. Some of them, their muscles in the early stages, their muscles will look really good. Later stages, they start to actually lose muscle tissue. because they don't have the energy they need to repair it.
Okay. So that's what's going on. It's tying up. I bring it to you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you determine what the cause is?
Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit, because I think if we're going to talk about tying up, we need to first figure out how we know it's tying up.
That's true.
Okay. So we need to know that.
So I walk out to the barn. How do I know that it's tying up?
So when we're talking about tying up, it can look a lot like colic.
Okay.
Right. These horses can get crampy. They can go down. Like some of them will just stop, drop, and roll right there because their body hurts. It's full body cramp. But then they get over it right away. So a lot of these horses can actually look like colic. Some of them, and that's the early stages. Okay, that's usually when it first kind of starts happening. When this has been going on for a long time, they will completely seize up, lock up, can't move. All right. And so one of the things that we're going to do to figure out, is it tying up, is we're going to run blood work. This is really important to get this blood work done. We're looking at two things. We're looking at several things, but the biggest ones, we're looking at muscle enzymes. You're going to hear us talk about CK and AST, creatinine kinase, and then I'm not even going to try to pronounce the AST part because my George is going to mess that up.
They can Google that one.
Yeah. But those two enzymes, that's how it's going to read out, and they're going to be extremely elevated because those are enzymes trapped in the muscle, and this muscle actually gets so tight that these enzymes start leaking out, and these things can make your horse pretty sick.
So how soon to that episode do you need to run this blood work to show that?
We can see it as within, of them tying up, we can see it within an hour.
Okay.
All right. But then we can see it several days later in these really severe cases, because once this happens, the kidneys have to process all this out. They've got to filter all this out. All right. That's why when you look at when they urinate, if you see that really dark red urine, that's actually what's called myoglobin. And that means you've had muscle die. It's released all these enzymes, plus it's released myoglobin. And the kidneys have to filter all that out. And that's why the urine will look really, really dark. It'll almost look like they're peeing blood. And that's what a lot of people, when they call my horse is peeing blood, it's no, he's got myoglobinuria, he's tied up. And so then when we run that blood work, we see those things elevated. It takes time for the kidneys to filter all of that out. So we can see these elevations for several days afterwards.
Okay.
In severe cases.
Yeah. Okay. So back to, it can look like colic, but in the mild cases, it can just resolve itself pretty quickly.
Right.
What if you think it's a mild colic, you go ahead and give 10 mils of Banamine, and now my horse is better.
So.
And it's coincidental.
Right. So a lot of times that happens because this is painful.
Right.
It's painful. It's cramp.
They don't want you to touch them a lot of times, right?
No, they don't want to be touched. They're very, very painful. Like I said, I've had some of them, literally the first couple cases I had. So people would be on their horse, they'd be riding, just finished riding. They get done, they step off to untack them, and these horses just went down, right? Because they hurt. And they went down and they started rolling, all right? And then by the time we'd get there, they'd be perfectly normal. Everything's fine. And so some of them can, early stages, that's how it looks. But that's also when we want to catch this. Because the more of these episodes they have, the more severe it gets. So here's where you start to run into trouble. They're going to feel better with a dose of Banamine because it's a pain medication. The problem is Banamine is not great for the kidneys. These muscle enzymes that are getting released from the muscle, not good for the kidneys. So then we start to worry about, are we going to run into kidney failure? We're going to start getting kidney disease secondary to this.
Would that happen after one?
Not typically after one.
Okay.
But
if you think it's a recurrent mild colic and you just, over the course of a couple months, are given Banamine and it goes away. Yeah,
if you get in this habit of you're riding, or you do a heavy ride and then they act colicky, you lunge them heavy, they act colicky, you need to start thinking maybe this isn't colic. Okay, we got a pattern here. We have strenuous exercise, we look colicky. We need to start asking the question, like, is it colic, or are we actually having, are we tying up? Do we have rhabdomyolysis?
And this is probably from a not owner perspective why we like to go see all colics.
That would be it. Yeah.
Just to be safe. Makes sense. Okay.
Right. And that's why history is important.
Yeah, and you ask like what was happening prior, or
when your vet,
day like.
Exactly. When your vet starts asking questions, what were you doing before this happened? How many times has this happened? If you start saying like, he does this a lot, then we're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, how often are we doing this? And this is gonna kind of help us. That's why I always tell people, don't hold back.
And,
yeah. Don't not tell your vet something and because you want to see if they'll figure it out. No. Just lay it all out there.
Well, and you aren't asking it to like point a finger or see where we went wrong. I don't think it's just you need to know to be able to do your job.
Right. I'm trying to figure out. This is one of the things we go to, especially you call us for a colic and we get there and they don't really look colicky. All right. This is where the questions start coming. I'm going to start asking you a lot of questions and they're going to seem a little weird. But this is where I need you to remember back, start thinking through. And like I said, when you see this pattern start to arise, like heavy work, my horse is colicky, I'm kind of going down this road.
Okay. All right. So now we've kind of talked about what it is. As a horse owner, how do you know what to do? Like you know symptomatically that it's likely tying up based on the pattern. I've always heard, okay, well, we'll just give them some Karo syrup.
Okay.
Now what?
All right. So this is where it gets important. So what you're describing now, because this can look very similar, is a condition called HYPP. This is hyperkalemic periodic paralysis, is what that stands for. So in the quarter horse world, there was a stallion years ago called Impressive. And Impressive had a gene. And what it did was it caused this mass flood of potassium into the blood. So when we're looking at electrolytes, they all have places they live. Okay. So sodium lives in the blood. Potassium lives inside the cell. That's where it's happy. Potassium's living inside the cell. It's really, really good. What happens with HYPP is all of a sudden all this potassium floods outside of the cell. And when it floods outside of that cell, they can look in there from like they're just tying up. You can get these huge waves of muscle fasciculations where it looks like their muscles are just rippling everywhere. It can progress to where it looks like they're having full-blown seizures. And all that's caused from potassium leaving the cell in mass quantity and ended up in the bloodstream. Okay? So it can look just like tying up. That's why you kind of got to know if this is...
Would the blood work show that differentiation?
If we catch it in the early stage, we're going to see a really high potassium in the blood. Okay, so potassium should be relatively low. To give you an idea, sodium's going to be like in the 120, 130 range. Potassium would be like 7. So when we get into those states where potassium is really, really high in the blood, all right, we're going to start asking more questions. Is this a quarter horse? Does this horse go back to Impressive? Did you have genetic testing done? Okay. So if you're like, oh, he does go back to Impressive, we're starting to see these same symptoms. Does he carry the gene? And if you're like, oh yeah, he does carry the gene. He's a carrier of the gene, what we call heterozygous, or he could be homozygous where he has both copies. That's going to start to lead us down this HYPP route. Okay. That's where the Karo syrup comes in. All right. If it's PSSM, Karo syrup, not going to help you. Okay. If it's HYPP, that will actually help you. All right.
It causes them to relax, stops essentially seizing, and get up and they're fine.
It can definitely help. It what it does. All right. This is where the body gets really, really cool. All right. So insulin is not just about glucose. So insulin can actually help push that back into the cell. There's a transporter that involves insulin that helps us take potassium and move it from the blood back inside the cell. So if we give Karo syrup and we get a lot of glucose, the pancreas sees that huge spike in glucose and goes, oh, I need to make more insulin. So it starts making more insulin. And the insulin helps push that potassium back into the cell. So as an owner, y'all start giving Karo syrup. We get there as veterinarians, we're going to use some high-tech Karo syrup. We're going to use dextrose IV. We're going to start running fluids to it, and we're going to start dripping dextrose. And that's going to help us push that potassium back into the cell.
All right. HYPP versus PSSM.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know?
Good question. Again, it's going to go back to blood work. All right, so when I'm going to ask you questions, I'm going to find out, because if your horse is not related to impressive, that's the bloodline that carries this HYPP gene.
Only
one.
And has to be quarter horse, because he was.
He was a quarter horse. So if you have an HYPP gene, your horse is related to impressive.
Even if it's an appendix. It has to have quarter horse somewhere in it.
It has to have, at some point in time, this horse was related to impressive. That's the horse that started all this. It was a gene mutation that then got passed down. So if your horse does have impressive in it, then we need to know, and then if we look at the blood work and the potassium's really high, we're like, all right, this is HYPP. Then we're going to start looking at genetic testing to find out if you're a carrier for this gene. And if it is, we're going to teach you how to manage through that.
What about just my quarter horse type grade? We need to run some kind of genetic test, or do I need to send off hair to AQHA? Or
yeah, it's really easy. You can send off hair to AQHA. That not only looks at the HYPP gene, but there's a condition called type 1 PSSM, and that's the genetic form of PSSM. And interesting enough, everybody in the quarter horse tests for the genetic version of PSSM. Type 2 PSSM, which is not genetic, is actually more common in quarter horses than type 1. But we have the genetic test, everybody runs it. But the type 2, which is not a genetic condition, is more common in quarter horses than type 1.
So how do you know if it's type 2?
Type 2, we have to do a muscle biopsy. And really, that's the crutch of all of these. Other than HYPP, if you're carrying the gene, blood work comes back with really high potassium, is HYPP. But these other causes, like I said, the MFMs, myofibrillary myopathy, recurrent exertional rhabdomyolysis, RER, the PSSMs, the vitamin E deficient myopathies, the only way to determine which one of these we have is to do a muscle biopsy. Everybody freaks out about a muscle biopsy. It's 2 tiny incisions. Make 2 little incisions, grab a little tiny piece of muscle. We send it off to the lab. They're going to look at it under a microscope, do some specialized staining. They're going to send us a report a few days later and be like, hey, this is what your horse has. All these are very, very manageable. We can manage all these. We just have to know which one we're treating, because they all have little subtle differences on what we need to do.
From a management standpoint, what are the differentiations?
Okay.
So that I can keep riding or showing, or my horse is comfortable.
It's all going to depend on which one you have, and it's going to depend on, and that's going to dictate how we feed them and how we exercise them. It's all related to diet and exercise. They have very stringent requirements, so nutrition becomes really, really important. One of the things I'm going to do is get you set up with a nutritionist, all right? Because I can get you about 80-90% of the way there on the diet, but when you have that nutritionist on board, they're going to be able to really hone this in. So I'm going to set you up with a nutritionist. We're going to get a really good nutrition plan put together that's very specific for your horse and this condition. We're also going to lay out an exercise plan, because it's a combination of the two. You get the diet right, but you miss on the exercise, you're still going to have issues. If you get the exercise right, but you mess up the diet, you're still going to have issues. You have to get both of them right. I've got horses that are successful in almost every discipline out there that have one of these conditions. They all do fine once we get the diet correct and the exercise correct. So they're all very manageable.
So it sounds like you just need to know which one when it comes to feeding.
Yeah, you got to know which one.
Treating, and don't just go give K-Row syrup, and don't just feed low sugar, because you don't know.
Right.
So,
because that's not a great diet for a horse that doesn't have PSSM. So if your horse doesn't have PSSM, going on the strict low carb diet, your horse is going to run out of energy. They're not going to do well. And if it's one of the vitamin E's that's causing this, then all we got to do is put them on really high doses of vitamin E. And everybody always wants to say, okay, I'm going to do these trials. All right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this because I don't want to do the biopsy. Well, the problem is like it takes months to get this diet right. It takes months. You've got to know which one it is, because until you know which one it is, you don't get to dig into this. Once you have a target, right? Once you have a target, once you know what you've got to do, you can go down that path and you can win, because they'll say you make a change and they get better, but they're not 100%. Okay, well, this is where we go back to the drawing board and we go, okay, what else do we need to tweak in this diet? I had one that everything was great, still having issues. We found out it was on a supplement that was really high in sugars. So didn't realize that until we looked at, because we had the diet right, it was on a couple supplements. Well, the problem was the supplement had a lot of sugar in it. As soon as we took the supplement away, boom, got it fixed. But if we've been guessing our way through, we would have never known we needed to go look at that.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know exactly.
You didn't know it was on supplements.
Yeah. Well, you told me it was on a supplement, but I mean, there are thousands of supplements out there. I don't know them all. And this was added in for something completely unrelated. So knowing which one you have, that way if you're like 90% of the way there, but you need that little bit more, if we know what we're treating, we know we can go in and start to modify this a little bit. If we're guessing our way through this, we may go like, oh, well, we've picked the wrong thing. So hope is not a plan. Guessing is not a plan. Getting an answer is a plan.
And it ends up being just as costly and stressful and take longer.
It takes longer.
Try to do that.
You know, one of the things I remind people is you can get a lot of things back. You can get money back. You can get a lot of things back. You can't get time back. Once time's gone, it's gone. So instead of spending a year, 18 months trying to guess your way through this, spend a week, get an answer, and then a couple months getting everything tweaked out, and we're ready to go again. Or we can piddle around for years and years, and then it's extremely frustrating. You're just frustrated.
Okay, I'm an owner that I'm Googling.
Okay.
And I'm doing things online, and I'm a self-diagnosed and do the trials and all of that. Could I accidentally cause other issues long term?
Absolutely.
Because of not getting the right one?
Absolutely. All right, because tying up's not just tying up. All right, people are like, oh, he just tied up. It's not just tying up. These muscles cramp up so much and so hard that they're actually breaking down. So you're losing muscle. That's extremely hard to get back. Plus, we talked about those things like myoglobin, creatinine kinase, AST. Those things in high levels are actually toxic to kidneys. So now your kidneys are working overtime. Kidneys do not regenerate. So these poor kidneys are in there working away, because every episode you have, this is more work on the kidney. Eventually, this can lead to kidney failure. So we can take something like, that's why I say it's not just tying up. Because if it's, and the other thing people don't realize too, these horses can tie up so hard and so bad, and we can get so much muscle death that we're actually squeezing, because these muscles get so hard, they're like a tourniquet on blood vessels. They shut off blood supply. So then you're getting further death to the muscles. This can lead us into what's called reperfusion injury. So what this means is, as we start to hydrate these horses with fluids, as their muscles start to relax, all those toxins that were sitting inside the muscle get released again, because they haven't been able to get out of there because they have no blood flow. So the blood flow comes back, it starts picking up all these toxins that the muscles generated. When that goes into the system, it can actually kill them. They can die from this. It's called reperfusion injury. Make them extremely sick in the best case scenario, and it can actually lead to death in the worst. And there's nothing we can do about it. You or I, if you were in the situation, they may look at putting us on dialysis to help the kidneys out. This isn't really an option in horses. We don't have big dialysis machines. So it's very important to know as soon as possible which one you're dealing with, so you don't end up in that scenario.
How often do you see it present mildly as, I don't know what's going on with my horse, he's just lazy. I get off and he wants to lay down, and what if I could see it being misconstrued as a behavioral training type of thing. So again, that's just where you have to get the history, I guess.
This is why the history is so important. Okay, and this is why, I've been dealing with neuromuscular cases for, I think my first one was probably 14, 15 years ago. And I kind of stumbled into it because I was running out of ideas. I kind of stumbled into it. We didn't know as much back then. It wasn't as common. Now I get there a little bit faster because I've seen enough of them. We know more about it. We can get to this answer a lot quicker. So we're going to ask those questions. That's why the history is so important. I always say a lot of people want to come into the vet's office, okay? They want to come in and be like, well, I don't want to tell you too much because I want to see what you think.
I may have been guilty of doing that once or twice until I realized how terrible it is.
And I always tell people, like, if you want to play the game Stump the Veterinarian, like, okay, we can play that game. Tell me up front.
No pop quizzes with no studying. And yeah,
like we're
not a great plan.
We're trained. Okay, we're trained to ask questions, write things down, filter things out, keep things in. And I can tell you, it's always, every time I've had one of these cases, like you're over there beating your head against the wall. It's visit number 2, maybe even number 3, and you were like struggling, like, what the heck? And then the owner finally goes, well, I haven't mentioned this because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But, and I always like, as soon as I hear the but, I just stop and look. I'm like, here it comes. And they throw that one thing out there, and you're like,
that was a puzzle piece.
That was all I needed. That was the puzzle piece that puts everything together. I know what we need to do. So I tell people, when you go see your vet, not the time to play Stump the Veterinarian, not the time to be like, well, I don't want to tell you what the last guy said, not the time to be like, well, I don't want to tell you this. No, this is the time where you just, like, I need you to just spill everything. Word vomit everything. Like, I mean, you'll see me over here. I got a pen and paper, and I'm over here just scribbling notes.
But you also might just daze out and, like, seem completely detached and not listening, but you're just, like, soaking all of it up.
I'm listening to everything.
And there's, like, all these filters and files going through your brain, and it's like, yeah.
My favorite
computer.
my favorite is when people bring a friend to the vet, like because they always bring that friend.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, that friend says something, and like, hold on, what's this? Oh, I don't think that's a big deal. Like, no, come on, let me get that. And all of a sudden, they start conversating, they start talking, and I'm over there scribbling stuff down as fast as I can. I'm listening to everything. It's like, there it is. And that's a lot of times how we find these. You start asking questions, okay? And at first, they're not telling you something because they don't feel it's important. And then as we go through, they're finally like, well, now that you mention it, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, come on. Let's don't hold back. Let's just lay it all out there.
Well, like the supplement thing, you just think that, oh, the supplement's safe. It's on the market. It's not going to have any other issues. But
lo and behold, there was the issue.
Yeah.
So, like if you got an HYPP horse, you probably don't want a supplement that's high in potassium.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things we have to look at.
So how do electrolytes play into the tying up?
So they can definitely play a role. They're different than people. Like if you got athletes that are working hard and they don't have the electrolytes that they need, that's where Gatorade was invented. I mean, I hate to admit it, but University of Florida, they kind of, I can't believe I just said that. I feel gross. I'll throw Go Dogs in there. But University of Florida, they invented Gatorade because they were having issues with their players cramping up. So the sports nerds down there figured out, like, hey, if we start dumping some electrolytes into them, they don't cramp up as much. Horses can do the same thing. It may just be an electrolyte issue. But again, we've got to go through a process to figure out, is this an electrolyte issue?
When I was a kid and I would get a cramp, we're playing outside, whatever, Mom, eat a banana.
Eat a banana.
But isn't that potassium?
That's potassium. But if your horse doesn't have HYPP, that's okay. If your horse has HYPP, maybe let's don't give them some more potassium. That might be our problem. And so if you have HYPP, electrolytes become a real issue for you. But if your horse doesn't have HYPP, maybe we need some electrolytes. Your big ones are calcium, potassium, sodium, chloride, which if you got sodium, you got chloride in there. But those are your big ones, making sure you have enough of those. And so that's the other thing we look at is the diet. Like if we're down here in Georgia, we're pouring sweat, we got to replace those electrolytes. So all these things have a big role in it.
I remember you working up one horse that came in after barrel race and thought it was tying up. And you ended up looking at the electrolytes because I think she was giving it like after every run or something to try to replenish.
Mm-hmm.
I assume you were looking for the levels of potassium. And this was prior to a muscle biopsy, just trying to eliminate things, I think.
Yeah, we're looking at potassium, we're looking at sodium, we're looking at calcium. The hard part is identifying those when you're not there in the moment because the body is really good at fixing that. But so this is where when we start getting into electrolytes, we have to look really hard at your diet. We have to look at what the horse's intake is and the work levels. So some of these will come back and they'll be like a recurrent exertional rhabdomyolysis. We think that's related to calcium. And calcium can be, like we can do a whole episode just on calcium metabolism. It's really, really cool. But we may not have enough calcium in the diet, so we have to supplement this. So especially horses like race horses or barrel horses, they're getting Lasix. One of the things we know with Lasix is they're going to dump potassium and they're going to dump calcium. So their electrolytes can get out of balance. So it's really important that we're supplementing those back.
Okay, so you said that you will give horses that are tying up IV fluids.
Mm-hmm.
One, do you add anything to the fluids to replenish anything? And two, why can't we just go to the farm and like tube them some fluids and call it a day?
So a couple things that are important when we talk about fluid therapy. One, I need that blood work. All right, I need to know what I'm dealing with. I've had some of these CKs. Normal CK is, I can't even remember. It depends on the animal. I'll just say 650 or so, 350, somewhere in there. I can't remember the exact number, but it's less than 1,000. Let's put it that way. And these horses with they're tying up. I mean, I've had one the other day was 26,000. Had one that was 58,000. I mean, it's high. Need to know that. All right, because I need to know what we're starting at because I've got to get that down. The other thing is the other thing we're going to run is those electrolyte because what we're going to actually do is what's called diuresing. So when I say we're going to give them fluids, we're going to give them a lot of fluids. Like their whole job, like poor Danielle's out there in the barn. I mean, she's just taking wet shavings out, putting new shavings in. I mean, they're going to pee a lot, but that's how we protect the kidney. All right. There's an old saying, the solution to pollution is dilution. So we're just going to dilute the heck out of them. We're going to run a lot of fluid through there. We're going to help that kidney really filter all this stuff out. We're going to get things moving through the kidney fast. And we're going to let it clean all this stuff out. So they can and they're going to pee a lot. So when we're doing that, we're also losing those electrolytes. So we need to know what we're losing. Plus, if we're low, let's say our calcium's really low, regular lactated ringers isn't going to be enough. We're going to need to spike those bags with calcium. Let's say our potassium's low, we're going to need to put potassium in those fluids. So we need to know what our electrolyte status is, because if I crash the electrolytes, I'm going to make this worse. So I need to know what those electrolytes are, and then I have got to put a lot of fluids. When I say a lot of fluids, I'm talking about some of these horses may get as much as 60 to 80 liters in a 24-hour period. Some even more, depending on the size of the horse. They get a lot of fluids. Orally, I can get about 8 to 10 liters of oral fluids in your horse's stomach at a time. Yeah, I'm going to give them a 20-liter bolus just to start with. So in the first 30, 45 minutes, I'm going to put 20 liters into them and hydrate them because I need to get blood flow back to that muscle so I can get that muscle rehydrated, start getting those toxins out of there. And then I need a lot of fluid running through that kidney so I don't end up in kidney failure. Can't fix kidney failure.
And over, let's say, the course of 24, 48 hours, how often are you running your blood work and your electrolytes and all of that, monitoring things?
So we're going to be running that chemistry usually about every 24 hours. So that's the night tech's job, is to pull blood so that when I come in the morning, I've got my blood work right there so I can set up the fluid plan for the next 24 hours. So they know to pull that blood early in the morning, run it, and have it on my desk early in the morning. So I can be like, okay, I'm rolling here at 7 a.m. Boom, there's the blood work I needed from the horse that's been here all night on fluids. looking through, they're like, yep, we're making progress. Let's, we can start turning this down. Electrolytes look good. Don't need to add anything. Or I may look at it and be like, I'm not making progress. We were at 2 to 3 liters an hour. I need to go to 4 to 5 liters an hour. So I can make those changes. About every 24 hours, we're getting blood work on these horses. Because like I said, this is not just, they're just tying up. This is, like I said, this can be life threatening. So we don't play around with this.
Yeah, for sure. And I just keep going back to, it looks like colic.
It does.
Like, and what do we do when horses are colicking? This is the other thing I was taught as a kid. Oh, you've got to walk them. I remember I was 10 years old, my horse was colicking, and me and Dad are ready to sleep in the truck. We were just going to trade off all night, walking my horse, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Don't walk them. If they'll lay there quietly, let them lay there quietly. And like I said, then if they're tying up, you're over there making them walk.
Miserable.
It's miserable. They hurt.
Then they are going to throw themselves on the ground potentially and look like colic.
Yes.
So basically the moral of the story is we just need to call.
Yeah.
If there's any questionable anything.
Call. And if you notice, like, if you have these like bouts, like some of the first PSSM cases I dealt with, they would look like they're colicking. By the time we got there, they were perfectly fine. And I've had other owners that this will happen and they'll call and be like, look, I thought he was dying a few minutes ago. Now he's perfectly fine. I'm like,
they're fine. You don't need to come.
You don't need to come. I'm like, oh, no.
No, actually.
I need to come because I need to get this blood work run on this one.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking something here. You need to let me run this, see if that CK and AST is up.
I mean, before working here, I totally would have been like, oh, no, everything's good now. No need to get an ER charge.
Yeah.
Why do we need blood work? He's fine.
Exactly. This is why.
No, there's so much more.
Because like I said, the majority of these horses, when it first starts, it looks like colic. So when they get to the full-blown stiff, can't move, can't walk, all right, this has been going for a while. This isn't episode 1. This isn't episode 2. They've had quite a few of these. This has been going for a minute.
Well, and when we think stiff, a lot of times they're like, oh, tetanus.
Yes.
I'm thinking how, like,
yeah.
prior to my experience here, what would I be going through in my head?
Right.
I'd be like, oh, stiff, that sawhorse tetanus.
Right.
But this is a different kind of stiff.
Different stiff. Different thing. Tetanus doesn't come on like.
And it doesn't go away either.
It doesn't go away.
So
tetanus doesn't go away. So yeah, I mean that's your biggest thing. This looks like colic, which I've decided like everything in a horse looks like colic. I'm pretty sure. So
because they're kind of pansies.
I mean, they can be, and their go-to is to stop, drop, and roll. I mean, they paid attention in fire class. You
talk about the muscle being really rigid. Is that what's happening in like the GI muscles too? Or is it just?
It can affect smooth muscle. Most of the time, it's going to affect the colic is just from the full-blown body cramp. Like, so a horse's go-to is just like lay down. Like if they're really, really hurting, which I actually gave myself, I actually lived through this. I actually tied up hiking one time out in the, we were backpacking in Wyoming, and I did not hydrate well. And I way overused. We got in there and we were going to have a few rest days, but then the fire showed up, so we ended up having to hightail it out of there. And so we were 2 strenuous days hiking in, but it wasn't going to be a big deal. We were going to be hanging out fishing for a little while. Well, then we had to turn around and get back out of there in a day. We're having to hump it out of there because the fire's coming. And then I realized that I was starting to tie up. And so I knew what was going on. And we're in the wilderness of Wyoming. And I can tell you, it does not feel good. And I'm over there like, okay, if I do what I need to do, which is I need to get some rest, need to get rehydrated, there's going to be a fire coming. Not an option. So not only was I managing myself, but a couple other guys in the group were going through the same issue with the rhabdo. And so I'm actually having, and like don't have IV fluids up there. Like getting to the hospital is not exactly an option. We're still 10, 12 miles from a truck. And so I'm having to try to manage all these people through. And they're like, oh, I need to take some Advil. I was like, no, we're not doing that.
Harder on your kidneys.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to keep drinking. And I mean, like, walk, drink, breathe. Walk, drink, breathe. Like, that's what we're doing here.
And you probably didn't have element or, the little packets.
We had some of those, but like I was like, yeah, we'll get those in, but we need hydration, a lot of hydration. I got to keep everybody's kidneys working until we can get out of here. But yeah, there was 5 of us in that group. 3 of us started going through this, and so we got a fire coming. We're tying up, and there's a little bit of panic, and I'm like, okay, I know what this is. This is what we got to do, and this is what we got to do. We got to get out of here. But we got out of there. All got checked out, got treated. We were all fine.
Did y'all go get IV fluids?
We did.
Okay.
We did, because I knew what it was. I was like, guys, this isn't about the tying up right now. It's about we need to keep our kidneys going. So,
man, all right. Well,
so yeah, it's painful. It doesn't feel good, and we had to walk because there's a fire coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't make your horse walk. I think the number one thing here is you're kind of seeing is give your vet a call. Make sure they got the history. If you've seen this happen a couple times, all right, we need to start doing something about this, because the sooner we can get to these guys and the sooner we can make these changes. And like I said, there's a bunch of them we didn't even talk about today that can cause this. We figure them all out on a muscle biopsy, but the sooner we can identify this, the sooner we can get them. If it's a bad episode, the sooner we can get them treated, the better we can protect not only the muscle, but we can protect the kidneys. Then we can also get a plan to where this doesn't happen again. So, yeah.
Okay.
Good talk.
Yeah.
Good talk.
A lot of information there. There's probably going to be potentially more follow-up questions. So,
yeah, if y'all got follow-up questions, send them in. We'll be happy to answer. And, I think this will be a pretty cool episode. So we're going to make an invite. Let's make an invite. If there's any owners out there or anybody that listens to our podcast, if you want to come on the podcast and you actually want to just sit down and ask questions, and we can go through some topics, and we want to do a deep dive, send it in.
Yeah, send it to me.
Yeah, this will be and if anybody's got a name for the segment, be great.
We need help with that. The creative juices
somebody come up with a great name for the segment. But basically, you have got a vet cornered. They can't go anywhere for an hour, and you get to ask them any question you want. That's what we're going to do. So if anybody wants to do that, reach out to us. We'd love to have you on.
This is kind of your Stump the Vet moment.
This Stump the Vet moment.
Not when there's actively a horse in here, but...
Yeah. I mean, really, it's what we do every day here at the clinic. I mean, when people come in, we're big on education, right? We don't want you left in the dark. We're not going to be oh, yeah, we fixed them. It's fine. No. We're going to sit down. Yeah, we're going to sit down. We're going to educate you. So this is what we do every day here at the hospital. Somebody comes in, we figure out what's wrong with their horse. We're going to go through, and we're going to have that whiteboard moment where we're going to go through and we're going to help you understand what's actually going on. So we're going to extend that out to our listeners. You want to come in, sit down with us? Come on. It'll be fun.
Yeah, let's do it. You can see the hospital, and
yeah,
it's really fun.
Jump on a podcast. So, yeah. And it can be any of us. It can be me. It can be Dr. Caitlin, Dr. Caroline.
You can request a doctor.
Yeah, if you got a doctor you want to sit down and do this with, come on. So,
cool.
But yeah, send it in. Well, thanks for being here, April. You were here twice. Once making sure this podcast actually happened, and once being a horse owner. So appreciate you coming on today. And thank you, Casey, for doing all the editing. I think a lot of people, until you've done a podcast, you don't realize what all goes into getting this out there. So we got a great team helping put that together. And thanks for the whole team here at Countryside Equine Hospital for making this possible, making every day a great day. So
yeah.
All right. Well, all our listeners, what's that?
It's gonna be a great day.
It's always a great day. As long as I don't have to get a real job, it's a great day. Just don't make me get a real day. I just don't want a real job. So, well, thank y'all for listening. Like I said, if you like the podcast, like and subscribe. If you don't want to like and subscribe, don't like and subscribe. Just listen. We're cool with that too. We just like doing this. Hopefully we can, the big goal is to educate as many people as we possible, make this world a better place for horses. I mean, that's really what we're here. If you want to know what we're here about at Countryside Equine Hospital, it's for the horse. That's what we do this for. So hopefully this makes a few horses better, and hopefully we continue to educate the world. And like I said, y'all got questions, send them in. And if you want to come jump on the podcast and ask the vet any question you want, come on. It'll be fun. I think it's really like good time. So
I'm excited to see who sends in their nominations.
Heck yeah.
Themselves. Yeah.
So come on in, jump on the podcast, ask some questions. And like I said, thanks for listening. From all of us here at Countryside Equine Hospital, y'all have a great week. Take care.